Morning. Welcome to Monday meeting of the BOCC. Looks like Kathy, we got some budget stuff, so I'll just turn it over to you.
Yes, good morning,
Okay.
Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. We have a budget workshop this morning. Our first area department is Superior Court. And we have a slideshow up on the screen. And so I'll just turn it over to them to discuss their items.
So good morning. Before we get started on the numbers, I'm Judge Marilyn Hahn, I'm presiding judge at Superior Court. And so I just wanted to.
Judge, is a bright green light on?
Always forget that.
Thank you.
So once again, Judge Marilyn Hahn, presiding judge, Superior Court. I just wanted to give an idea, not so much for you because I've talked to the three of you of what Superior Court is. And then we have Judge Fassett presiding for juvenile will also be talking. So overall, as you know, overall you have the executive, legislative, and courts and the three branches of government. In Cowlitz County, the executive and the legislative fall to the Board of County Commissioners, and the courts are a separate branch of government. Superior Court is known as the trial court. We handle criminal felonies such as murder, rape, assault, etc., which are approximately 60 to 65% of what we handle. Divorces, real estate, estates, appeals from district court, adoptions, and a number of other types of cases. We had 2,693 new cases filed from the beginning January through August of 2025. If you average that out, that's about 3,590 new cases for 2025. And that does not consider the pending cases that are still out there. We have 5 judges, a part-time court commissioner, and various other attorneys that will fill in as a court commissioner if there's a need because of our heavy caseload. We juggle the many trials and case dockets among 3 courtrooms and the jail courtroom, as well as have the matters over at juvenile court. Today, you will hear from Danielle Paul, our court administrator. Danielle will cover the budget matters for the Superior Courts. Then you will hear from Dallas, our therapeutic court manager. I note we have 5 different therapeutic courts. Dallas will present on that budget. I am here, as is Judge Fassett, to answer any questions. With that, I will turn this over to Danielle.
Good morning, Commissioners. Danielle Paul, Superior Court Administrator. I don't have a lot to present. We're not asking for much as far as changes go for our budget. Looking at our pro tem line, we'll start there. We are asking to reduce that by $40,000. Schedule changes and judicial personnel changes have reduced the amount of judge pro tem time that we have used. We are working on a new schedule for 2026 that hopefully we can get some more utilization with judge pro tem time. We did leave enough in the budget to keep us comfortable in the event that we can. When we use judge pro tem time, the state does reimburse us 50% of those costs, so it is valuable when we are able to use a pro tem. Questions before I go to the next? Nope. Our professional services line is where we are asking for an increase. Expenses over the years have been increasing due to state mandated services that we have to provide. This includes our guardian ad litems, court-appointed attorneys, and court visitors in minor guardianship cases, along with our interpreters. The state does reimburse us some of the costs associated with those services, not all, but some of them. You'll see that in the revenue on the next slide when we get to that. This line is also what pays for the county contracted mandatory mediation services, which is $40,000 a year. And I believe that was just done last week.
It's going to be presented in the next few weeks.
Okay, so that's coming, but we pay that. every month for the year, and it's 40,000 each year.
Yeah, it's traditionally been a 2-year contract and it's up for renewal at December 31st of this year.
Any questions? Okay. Moving on to the revenue, again, we don't anticipate any large changes. I did want to outline our UGA reimbursement. That is what I referenced previously, our court-appointed attorneys and court visitors in minor guardianship cases. The state's reimbursement has gone down for 2026. We don't know what 2027 looks like. We won't know till mid-year next year. In our interpreter reimbursement with the state, it actually went up a little bit. So it offsets that decrease from the UGA a little bit. But other than that, we don't expect any other major changes to our revenue. Questions?
Where are you guys at on your budget this year?
As far as,
How close are you to exhausting it, or are you gonna have money left over?
any idea where we're at?
Yeah, so I'm looking at my budget adjustments and we don't have an adjustment for Superior Court in this next quarter. So they're pretty much on track with their budget.
I will say that last year in our professional services line, we went over by 25% because of the increase. So we did increase that line this year, and I looked at it last week and we are just below on target with that line. So we're doing better this year than we were last year for that line.
And I think on your Judge Pro Tem, you're below.
Yes,
You're below,
we are.
but they're below
Mhm.
budget on that one as well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
That's good.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
Thank you.
So our next presentation will be, let me get this one off, will be our drug and therapeutic court. Okay, come on. Oops. Okay, I'll turn it over to Dallas.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dallas DeLagrange, Therapeutic Courts Manager. Ooh, that's small.
Yeah, that's small. Here, let me see how far I can make it come over here. How about that?
Okay,
Can you
that
see your
that looks
notes?
a little bit better.
Well, it won't.
So, went through and adjusted the budget as much as I possibly could. Our budgets, there's not much I could adjust to, let's just say that.
So let me help him with this a little bit. So they're primarily, their budget's primarily salaries and benefits, or it has been in the past. And so for 2025, for example, their salaries were 662,654. It's going down, is showing a reduction for 26 and 27, but that's primarily because we presented during the personnel budget workshop to move case managers and such over to the opioid funds for the next budget cycle. So, so that's the decrease. It's about 386,000 for 2026 and a little over 400,000 decrease for 2027. And then supplies, they're reducing, they've gone line by line and did a reduction of several items that they could, and they went from 26,900 to 26,750 for both 26 and 27. And then on services, their services for 2025 was 169,452. It's showing an increase, but approximately 96,000 of the next of 26 number is actually internal services departments, which saw an increase. So they actually were able to reduce, I think my note here is 7,000 and a 26,000 and 2027. So otherwise, services costs have decreased for them. They went through line by line and made reductions in those areas. For revenue, excuse me. So they have quite a bit of revenue that has been coming in the past. So they had the mental health tax in 2025 at 600, almost 630,000, excuse me. They also had department DSHS grant for 60,000, and they had a I'm looking at this sideways, DC, they had another one for 20,000. So for 2026, and then that shows you, I did a little line there to show you, general fund was supplementing their operations to about $149,000. Starting next year, they're going to receive a transfer from the
CJTA.
CJTA grant, which is administered by the Health and Human Services Department. So that's 32.5. Right now, that's a conservative number. It could go up depending, but they haven't received the actual grant yet for the next cycle. So they're giving a conservative number, what they can transfer for drug and therapeutic courts.
Dallas, is that the grant that we're able to apply for because of your certifications?
So this grant has been around, but due to my licenses, there's opportunities to expand and receive more money for these services. So the contract has not been signed off yet, so they couldn't give us exact numbers, but there's opportunities for more money from that grant.
So, and that, we put those numbers conservatively for the next 2 years as well, so.
I do want to say that I appreciate, Dallas, all of your effort in trying to find more money to support that program. I know you text me probably weekly with questions on how to find things, opportunities for more money, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely, no stone unturned.
Mhm.
So I got a question on the salaries and benefits. You're showing opioid funds for supplementing those for 2 years. I thought that we said that was for a 1 year.
We said it was for 1 year. So I don't have it in the 27 budget anywhere right now. I have 26, which is according to what we approved for the personnel. So I can go back to the general fund and increase this back to put the salaries back on the general fund for 2027. If that's what we're wanting to
Oh,
do.
So is this number here that's showing 2027, is that just the salaries that we currently have that are funded from?
General fund,
Okay, so it's not saying that the opioid money will be used for that. It's just saying that's the general. Okay, I got it.
right?
Okay,
At this point, I have a question mark for 2027, so,
okay.
but I didn't put it back on general fund. I assumed we were exploring other opportunities.
Okay.
more questions?
Yeah, I do have a quick question. The 96,000 of internal services, what services are internal that we account for?
Traditionally, drug court has been charged specifically for IT services, all of the IT services, as well as risk management and industrial accident, those three internal services. That's what makes up the 96,000. And the reason they had been, so this goes into an item that I wanted to ask about. They had been charged because they had the opportunity through the mental health tax. They also fully loaded their salaries with the additional overhead charges being IT, industrial accident. So now that they're no longer being supplemented by mental health tax, traditionally other departments that are general fund and that are not receiving additional supplements like that, they don't pay their IT charges, non-departmental does. So if this is if we're moving their salaries to opioid, my suggestion is we also move those expenses, the internal services for those positions, because industrial accident, risk management, and IT are all based upon labor hours or personnel, mostly FTEs. So I believe that those should be charged to opioid, and they should follow the personnel just like they did on the mental health tax. And I didn't do that when we presented the personnel sheets.
What kind of numbers are we looking at with that? Is that's just that right there? It's gonna be added?
It's a portion of the 96,000. So it wouldn't be all of it, but it would probably be about 3/4 of it. So somewhere in the range of about 70,000 would be moved over to opioid to follow the personnel.
Dallas, I know we talked, I don't know if it was a couple weeks ago, with regards to, and Kathy, maybe you can help with this, with regards to the IT. Does that department utilize our IT services enough to warrant that?
The way IT allocation is done, it's based upon all of the IT department's salaries, as well as all of the software that is software specific for the county in general, like all of the Microsoft's licensing, because they do utilize that, all of the PeopleSoft licensing, because they do utilize that, several different packages, the property tax software that we use, I think it's called PAX. That's part of the software that's allocated to every department because every department benefits from the general fund property taxes. So, and then there also the personnel provides support for desktop management, things like that. New Refresh program, they benefit from all of their computers are refreshed after so many years. So they are participating in all those types of services. Did that answer the question?
Because I wanted to make sure that this wasn't a situation to where we were lumping a bunch of other services into one line item and didn't have it, mapped out so that we could see what all of the services were.
Yeah.
Like, I think we were doing that with utilities and emergency management, where we put in their triple net cost into their cleaning services or whatever it was. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't something like that.
Yeah. And I had a thought on the IT. Well, it's gone.
So
But it's Monday morning.
So if we're on general fund with salaries and benefits, those other services aren't linked to us to pay, if that makes sense? The IT or department or the,
Yeah, so what I'm proposing is the salaries that have moved we moved the corresponding overhead charges, the internal services that go with those FTEs, and moved that over to the opioid as well. Right now, they're buried in this services line to charge. And they have been in the past that way because the mental health tax revenues that came in, the transfer in, covered the salaries and a portion of those internal services. It was a upcharge on the salaries to cover all of the overhead.
So is that recommendation just based on keeping bookkeeping clean?
Yeah, keeping it consistent with the way it was done before, because before all the salaries remained in the general fund and we had a transfer in that covered salaries and overhead type items, services.
You probably know I gotta say my piece, and I get it that I'm outvoted here, but I'll say my piece anyway, and people take it that I don't. I think it gets taken that I don't like Dallas, or I don't like something, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. I think he's a very capable person. But the voters said no on this, and I respect what they did. And I will live by that. And I don't buy the argument that voters won't vote for an increase, because I watched Longview citizens turn down a park proposal. But then I seen them turn around and approve a police proposal. So they do pay attention. They pay attention. I went back and listened to some of the ads, and I read the stuff, and it was pretty clear this was for drug court, and the voters said no. And so I'll respect the voters, and I get it, I'm outvoted here, but that's the position I will take. And it has nothing to do with Dallas or anybody working in the staff. I'm just gonna respect what the voters said.
Okay, is
Okay.
there any other action on this budget? Okay, do we move on to the next budget? Come up.
All right, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Patricia Fassett, and I am a judge here in Cowles County and the current presiding judge of juvenile court. As Judge Hahn indicated, for adult superior court, juvenile court, we handle criminals, criminal cases, misdemeanors, felonies, certain civil cases through at-risk youth, truancy, and CHINS petitions, which is child in need of services petitions. In 2024, we had 135 new criminal cases filed in juvenile court, and that doesn't account for the pending cases. We have seen an unfortunate trend in the seriousness of juvenile felonies. We have a juvenile murder trial starting today. So there's a number of programs that were required by the state that the juvenile department handles. I'm going to turn over the time to our juvenile court administrator, Mr. Moya, to speak on probation and detention budgets. And we also have Mr. Reinertsen and Mr. Schultz here to answer any questions, and I will be here as well.
Good morning, Commissioners. George Moya, Juvenile Court Administrator. Yes, as Judge Fassett pointed out, I will present for both probation and detention. And so we'll dive into the probation budget. Our request for the 2026 upcoming budget is pretty much status quo with less expenditures. So we really took a deep dive into our budget. We trimmed and tightened our budget where we could. And that's to the tune of 10% change. So it's a 10% reduction in budget from 2025 to 2026. On the expenditure side, on the revenue side, we are taking a major hit with revenue. Well, on the next slide, well, not the next slide per se, but the upcoming slides will take a deeper dive as to where the 32% changes are coming from. So if we dive into the expenditure sides, I'm sure commissioners, you're well aware of a lot of increases coming in terms of IT, insurance, premiums, motor pool. I have listed 3 here, and you don't see IT here, which normally would be an increase. But during this cycle, we were managed to, even though we've been making the request to change our IT structure to more of a docking stations and go laptops versus full-on desktops and laptops. We have a lot of probation officers who need a laptop, and we would have extra technology in order for them to do field work and do their work. And so this year, we had our budget, our rollout for IT, and drastically changed it to where we now have laptops that are docking stations that people can take and essentially create a satellite office anywhere they go. So that was a huge benefit. So there was a 49,000 reduction in IT alone. Not to mention other reductions in other budget line items that weren't significant in here to point them out. But I am pointing out with these here, like the internal service for motor pool, the insurance premium and accident insurance, you'll see the increase of 16% for motor pool, 23% for insurance premium, and 460% for industrial accident insurance. What we're told with that is clearly that's not our doing. It's based on a percentage and a formula. We were told that the formula was not correct to some degree. And so when there was a closer dive into that, they realized that the numbers were much bigger than, the numbers should be bigger than what they were.
Yeah, and I can speak to that. This goes back to last year. I was asked to look at making sure that we had the right rates for the personnel. And in some cases, some departments were charged a higher rate, even though some of the personnel were administrative. And in this case, unfortunately, for probation, we actually have been charging all of their personnel at the administrative rate, whereas their actually categories were in, when we went person by person, their category was actually in the other category, which is a much higher rate than administrative. So we made the correction for 2026 and by person, and did their billing based upon the correct rates.
So that was our doing?
That was my office billed out the cost allocation. And in the previous years, we had billed out the cost allocation with the wrong assumption that probation was administrative staff, but they're not. They're considered a higher rate. It's called other. It's not as high as the sheriff's rate, but it's much larger. It's about 3 times the rate that that administrative staff are charged.
So does that affect our, do we have a policy for that type of a thing? And does it affect our premium and coverages because we didn't have the right rate we were charging? Do we have to adjust that now?
No, when the way we don't pay a premium, this is a self-insured plan.
Okay, got it.
And so it was the total pot was spread over everyone. And so we made this correction.
So I think I heard you say they're not administrative staff.
They're not all administrative staff. Some are. And so we took the approach that we did person by person and looked at their code instead of looking at the entire department as the same rate. So
Okay.
their rate for probation officers are actually at least 3 times higher than administrative. If they have administrative staff, which they do in this probation department, those are charged at the administrative rate.
So
Okay.
Kathy, is this a retroactive rate or is this just bringing it up?
No, just bringing it up. Yeah, we didn't go backwards.
Yeah, and Commissioners, regarding the motor pool, I want to point out that we do have 4 county vehicles. And though they're just coming out of probation's department, 4 county vehicles are essentially for entire Superior Court. And all Superior Court employees. We sometimes get at least 1 vehicle out for a couple weeks, maybe 2 weeks at a time if we have someone going to the academy. So that reduces us to 3 vehicles. And then we clearly have staff that needs to do field work. So in all county related businesses as well. So between field work, academy type of training and other training too, conferences, and then your general county business as well. So if you don't have any questions, I'll move on to the next one. So diving into the revenue side, and unfortunately, I neglected to put all the revenues here because not everything's a negative. We are having some positives in other areas, other line items. What I did highlight is 3 line items that are drastically changing for 2026. The first one is the state BECA grant. You may or may not be familiar with the state legislature took a turn in terms of BECA funding and truancy related services. Our county received a shortage of 68% in BECA funding. One thing though, we are getting $154,000 less. One thing I will highlight that the grant funding that we did receive, which will be 71,000, is essentially still paying for our own administrative cost to operate either BECA related cases or programs. So essentially the county is still receiving the revenue to stay afloat with hearings, court, and some small programs. The biggest cut came to ESD 112, who we normally did a pass-through grant to them to be able to provide truancy-related services. So though the state BECA grant did receive a huge cut, we are still remaining afloat with our operational costs associated with BECA. So to some degree, we're still getting that revenue. And again, ESD 112 is now being cut, and they're well aware that they don't have that funding moving forward. So.
What is BECA?
So a great question. BECA was essentially an RCW that passed. BECA was an actual young lady who was murdered, for lack of a better word.
I read
Yeah.
that. Okay.
And she was an at-risk youth type of case, not necessarily involved in the criminal justice system, but she was on the fringes. And based on her behavior, and parents needed some support when they looked to the community, when they looked elsewhere and they couldn't find that, they needed the courts to step in and help. And so BECA was created as part of that. So BECA was not only just funding truancy related services, but also at-risk youth. So a big portion of BECA was prevention. And that's something that the state legislature, unfortunately, this year didn't understand, that it's also a prevention program so that youth don't dive deeper into the system, or those that are on the fringes of. It's not just truancy. Truancy is just one portion of that. But unfortunately, that's cut.
So George, in that grant, we're losing $154,000, but you're saying it really didn't affect us.
154 is a loss to ESD 112, essentially.
Okay.
They are cutting their programs.
They are, not us.
Somehow they're either, if they're not cutting it through our funding, they are going to have to make it up somehow through OSPI at the state level or at their own internal budget somehow in order to make up for those funds.
So your department serves as the pass-through for ESD 112?
Yes. Yeah.
Didn't know that.
And a lot of the juvenile courts do. Because our staff, we're not staffed well enough to do that, to also run those programs and be out for the whole county. It's not just one school district, it's for the entire county. So.
Do the school districts help fund that?
They have a portion of it. And some of them may contract with ESD 112 to provide those services, or do it internally through an FTE. Yeah. The other state grant, that's a DCYF, Department of Children of Youth and Families. That's a 50% cut essentially. What that really means and what it entails is that less money, less programs available for youth. We still have funding to the tune of 20,000 for 2026 with that. So we're going to stretch that dollar as much as we can to account for many youth to enter those programs and use it for programming. And I'd like to point out that even though we see it as a revenue, here's 20,000 to provide services, on the expenditure side, you see 20. So if we didn't fulfill those services, you won't see them on the expenditure and you won't see them on the revenue side. This is a reimbursement type of grant, so. And the 1/10 of 1%, that will be eliminated for 2026. That was our full-time equivalent clinician, which salary and benefits. And so we won't be receiving that in 2026. And so total, approximately 324,000 that we won't see as revenue for 2026.
And this is on the probation side, right?
Correct. This is just solely probation side.
So
Correct.
that's why these programs are more preventative programs, I guess.
These are prevention type of programs. These are programs for youth that are in our system that may be on community supervision, as we call it probation. They may be on probation. So they have to go through these programs. There's benefits to having certain programs that benefit the entire family, not just the youth, because sometimes we understand and realize that, it may stem from familial issues as well. So we provide family-related services that are paid through these grants.
And are those services statutorily mandated, or are they just programs that
They,
have been around and we just?
there are a couple programs and they were created as evidence-based programs. So we as a county, if we think a program, if we think something may work and we start creating a program for ourselves and we realize, hey, this is actually working, we're keeping youth out of the system or cutting down our recidivism because they are not reoffending. And so that turns into a pilot program. And so the state will start funding us to create this pilot program, to fund the program. And then eventually they'll have to do some sort of meta-analysis to see, well, is it really the program or is it the staff? What is it? What are those factors contributing to less recidivism? So if that's the case, when they do a meta-analysis, they'll take a deeper dive and they'll probably get the services from WISCR, which is, Washington Institute for Public Policy, or a state agency that does statistical analysis to determine those things. And if that's the case, they can say, okay, you know what, this program does work. We like the model. We like the cost. The cost is cost effective. So essentially more bang for your tax dollar. And we're gonna invest in this and create an evidence-based program. So this is how programs become evidence-based. But at some point, the state legislature also needs to fund a statistical analysis, is to say, okay, just because we have these programs on our menu for so long, do we know they're working? Because our population changes, youth change. And so we need to invest also in the statistical analysis side and say, well, they're no longer working. And if that's the case, then maybe cut those programs and let's invest in other programs. What's actually working around the nation, not just Washington State.
And that gets to the root of my question is that something that we evaluate? We can say, hey, we don't want to institute this program, or does the state say you have to institute this program?
The state doesn't say we have to. They provide the funding if we wanted to go that tune. Now we use that as part of our case assessment process. So when we're doing case management and we have youth on our caseloads, then that's a tool for us to help that individual not to go into the reoffending side or eventually to the county jail at age 18. So we try to provide those type of services, prevention, cut down recidivism, and those programs are just a tool. And the state funds us, and we can choose to use those or not use them. So if we use them, we get reimbursement for them. If we don't, then I don't think we're doing case management as we should. Because simply having a kid come to my office and telling them, don't do that, may not really work. So we need programs to say, yeah, this program does help for these factors. essentially, let's say anger management or familial issues with a family therapist, or what is the risk factors that are creating this young person to be involved in criminal activity.
Do we have a mechanism within our county that evaluates the success of these programs?
Yes, we have it at a state level. Mhm.
But I mean, do
And-
we do it?
We do it too.
We do.
Mhm. I do it internally because the state may take a while before they start diving in. I love Excel sheets. I like our data, and I like to see what's working, what's not working. And right now we have a program that's 100% success rate in terms of the amount of individuals that are entering the program and completing the program. Now it'll take another 2 years essentially to see the recidivism, because that's the benchmark that I guess a lot of statistical analysis are using, a 2-year statistical period to see if they reoffended. And again, that's, every year I have to check 2 years ago to see where we're at with that. So it's a lot of work, it's a lot of numbers and a lot of data. And I rely on probation counselors also to provide accurate data. We're well in tune into the numbers that we report. And it's part of these grants. As youth are entering the program, we're reporting on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, what the numbers look like, how many youth enter programs, how many terminated for whatever reason. And we have to state the reason, because when you do a statistical analysis, you have to see, oh, this population is terminated at a higher rate. Well, if you look at the county of where they're at, then we may see that they have a transportation issue. They have no buses, in that section. So this population of youth in this county aren't successfully completing because we're thinking they're going to get to the program when they don't have a ride or a transportation to get them to that program. But you won't know that unless you take a deeper dive into the numbers and see why they're failing out of a program. And we have to state our reasons as to why they're terminated. Maybe it's all behavioral. Maybe this is not the program for this individual because they are completely out of control. And yeah.
I'm going to jump in and just say, so statutorily speaking, because I think that was your initial question, they don't outline specific programs because those programs kind of evolve and change, but they do essentially authorize juvenile probation counselors to assign those programs that are currently being utilized to the youth. So that's why it's kind of not specifically outlined what evidence-based programs, because some of them get nixed or don't work the way that we were all hoping that they would. So it's kind of an evolutionary process of programming. So they're not specifically listed in the statute, but it's part of what the juvenile probation counselors are supposed to provide.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we have a way to judge ourselves and not just expand the government and create programs because there's money available for that program, to make sure that the program is actually doing what we want it to do and not start it because there's money available.
Thanks, Judge. Mhm. And I will also point out that there's no general funding for these programs. That's all reimbursement. Yeah.
So I hear you telling me that, or telling us that all of these programs, you're independently tracking them. So besides the state information, whether or not it's successful here.
Correct. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, I didn't point out the positives in the revenue side. We are for 2026 expected to receive an additional 77,000 in our block grant. So in 2025, it was 269,000. And in 2026, it will be 347,000. So 77,000 extra, which means for more programs. Yeah. And go ahead,
I
Commissioner.
was just going to say, so this number here, this number is representative of these 3 specific grants, but where are your revenues overall for the year? Are they up or are they down?
So you'll see it. Yeah, thank you.
They're down 32%.
They'll down 32%. And And you'll see that the 32%, when you equate that based on the three major deficits that we will anticipate for 2026, that's a huge percentage of that.
Yeah, so this shows a decline of about 250,000, little less than 250,000, but they actually have a decline of 324. So they did, like you said, they also have increases coming in to offset that decline.
Yeah. And that does it for the probation side, unless you have any questions. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up. When George and I looked at probation, all of George's salary is in probation, but not split between detention and probation. And then there's several administrative staff, the same thing there. This is just historically, it's been all on probation, but my recommendation is to split the administrative salaries appropriately between detention and probation. So if you wanted to know what that true cost is, it would be more accurate if we were splitting the administrative salaries.
So roughly, what would that split look like? 50-50?
50-50. I would say 50-50.
I guess if that would accurately reflect the time is being spent in those two categories, I would think that'd be appropriate.
It would give a better overall picture administratively for what does it cost to run probation, what does it cost annually to run detention.
Unless it's some sort of formula, if we're actually looking at the operational expenses and it's just a formula where you just equate 50% of my salary and do it that way versus having it in two separate budgets split up. I guess it's a matter of preference. I don't think the jail, Moran, I believe may be an offender services is not under the jail, if I looked at that correctly. So that may not, both are 24/7 facilities. So a lot of my time, it varies. I can get calls on a holiday, Saturday or Sunday morning calls for whatever reason, in our detention facility. It's just the nature of a 24/7 facility. Yeah. This morning started getting calls about, our transition school started having a major leak. So here comes the rain and here comes the problems. So
So the way that it is now, it's more of a simplistic way and it's easier for payroll, right, Kathy?
Well, what happens is it's fairly simple. We have what's called combo codes, and if you set it up at the beginning there, it splits their whatever hours they have, whatever salary they played, it splits it based upon that combo code. They assign the percentage and
But the way that
it just
is now-
automatically does it.
But the way that it is now, we're not getting a true picture of what the administrative costs are for each department.
Right. In my opinion, all the administrative costs are over on probation. So none of the administrative none of the administrative cost is on detention whatsoever. And that just didn't feel right. I know we have other departments and we split salaries between different funds or different programs. So.
yeah, the structure that we currently have, it's been in place, like Kathy said, for a while, and I'm not sure if it makes sense at the county level, administrative level, or payroll, or I don't know that. I came into it and that's how it was structured. There's really two positions that are my position and our administrative 3 position, who does a lot of accounts payable for detention. So they're really two positions that could be 50-50 essentially. But I don't know what makes sense for the county. I don't think that's my decision to make.
And the only reason I bring it up, it's best to do it during budget. You do it at the beginning of a budget cycle and not midway. And so,
Well, the way you explain it doesn't sound like it's a big deal. I'm kind of withholding comments on some of this.
okay,
I have um, a meeting with Judge Hahn and I think some others this week. I wasn't able to do it last week because I had a contractor over at my place in Idaho and I need to get over there. So I don't know what you're looking for today, but I'll probably have some thoughts for you, maybe after I have
Okay.
a chance to sit down with.
yeah. I just thought I'd bring it up. It was something I noticed from a perspective of other departments split their salaries between different, if they're over different programs, so. Okay, now we're on to detention.
Yeah, so similar format as I had presented for probation. This is the big overview for detention. And we're looking at both revenues and expenditures. For 2026 as an expenditure, you're seeing a 7%, 7.19% increase in that from 2025. Something to note in regards to that, and we'll dive deeper into the expenditure slideshow. It's 7% increase. This accounts for three other, I believe maybe four other county-related, either insurance or IT-related expenses that really have nothing to do with what we would like them to be. That is something that somebody else is giving us a price tag on. So we don't really have flexibility into that. Also, there's COLAs per the collective bargaining agreement that are locked in till 2027 for a local 1262 detention officers. So you'll see that as part of that 7% change. On the revenue side, you're seeing a reduction of 37%. When we dive deeper into the revenue slideshow, I'll indicate why there's a difference there. But I just wanted to give you an overview here. So you see both the expenditure side and the revenue side and the changes between 2025 and 2026. So if we look at the expenditure side, the very top row that you'll see there, that's total operating expenses, not including salary and benefits. So if I just excluded salary and benefits, there's $137,000 difference there to the change of 23%. And so when we look closer, if you look at the next table down below, and we dive deeper into, again, the line items that we really didn't have a say, you'll see how they increase. Essentially, professional services increased by 100,000, internal insurance charges 35,000, industrial account by 3,000, and IT of 9,000. So when you look at that and sum them up, it's 147,000. Professional services there, and there's still, while we know that the biggest change there, as you're well aware of, we have a new medical contract that is, we're no longer having NAVCare. We have essentially a contract through the jail where we provide medical services for youth that are in our detention facility. So we're a small portion of that, but even that small portion, it's a big price tag. Yeah. Any questions about those?
What's the difference between the internal insurance and the industrial?
Internal insurance is your risk management. That's our liability or property,
Got it.
cyber, things like that. And industrial accident is our workers' comp, and that's a self-funded program.
The next slide is
Insurance is is gonna kill us. And it has nothing to do with our people here. It has all to do with state policy and the way we run things in this state. It's just, it's incredible the rises we're seeing.
Yeah.
Some of the things are just outrageous.
On the industrial accident, one of the main drivers of that is the cost of medical programs, on our claims, because the biggest cost in the industrial accident is the actual claims. And when medical costs are increasing 12%, 8%, that's what you're seeing, so.
Taking a deeper dive into the revenue side, and I wanted to explain the $32,000 difference that we will not be receiving in 2026. That was essentially a contribution from the ARPA fund that went to our industrial washer and dryers, which thank you for supporting that, because that is coming in really handy in our detention facility and much needed for hygiene and many other issues that can arise from not having those. So that's appreciated. Essentially asking for a status quo in revenues between 2025 and 2026, with the understanding that I anticipate 2026 having a little bit more in terms of revenue versus 2025. And it's so difficult to determine what population we're going to get and for how long. And so generally speaking, when you say room and board for DCYF and JR, which is Department of Children, Youth and Families, and the juvenile rehabilitation contract, that's very difficult. We don't know, you can't anticipate how many youth are exiting our local sanctions here and entering a state institution. And those are for youth that have committed some serious offenses in the felony side, that a local sanction, as we put it, or a local stay. We just to give you a perspective, anything over 30 days in our detention facility should be considered a state institution. So some youth get more than 30 days, and these are the youth that I'm talking about, and that's very difficult to determine. As Judge Fassett pointed out earlier, we are experiencing different types of violent offenses from youth. I've been here almost 19 years, and in my 19 years, I had never had the amount of youth that are being prosecuted as adults as we've had in the last 2 years. We've had about 4 youth versus 0 in like 18 years. And all of a sudden now, yes, we're getting less charges, less youth coming into the system, but the youth that we're getting into the system can be pretty violent. So, yeah, and so it's very difficult to determine what our actual revenues could be. We may say 55,000. I should have checked where we are right now in 2025, and I'm pretty sure we're very close to 55. And it's nearly November. And unless, do you have the? No.
I was looking to see if I had anything.
And I think that concludes you have any questions for me?
That 55,000, George, is that a reimbursement that we just submit to the state for whatever inmates we get?
No, so the 55,000 it's room and board. We have contracts with, let's say, Pacific Wahkiakum County. We have a contract with Columbia County. So those are funds that are coming in from outside. Right,
Okay.
correct.
Got it.
Yes. And right now, we're trying to get new contracts because they have expired. So you'll be seeing like a professional services agreement coming pretty soon in order to do business with either Columbia County in Oregon or Pacific Wahkiakum counties.
And the rates are set by the state, right?
Yes, as Candy pointed out, essentially rates are somewhat set by the state because they're the drivers of it. But there's a big push from counties to look internally to see. So essentially, we're fighting the state right now. We've only signed a 1-year contract with the state at a 250 rate, which it increased from 150 to 250. So there was a $100 increase in the rate. And we only signed a 1-year contract with them because we need to push them to say it costs a lot more per bed for these youth. Now we need to we as a state administrators need to come up with what is the potential formula to use essentially across the counties. Mhm. So there is an increase in the bed rate that's coming for 2026. And we don't know what 2027 is going to look like. I would anticipate yet another increase because I know the state at DCYF JR level will be making a request to the legislature for increase in funding in that regard. Yeah.
I know Grays Harbor and Thurston have had talks amongst themselves about combining their facility. Have we had any of those thoughts?
Combining facilities here with,
Like with Lewis or with Clark or with something?
I don't think statutorily we can, because of the size of our county. We're required to have an
Yeah.
independent detention facility.
Yeah.
And frankly, the best
And
we
I
can
get
do
all
is.
that, but I think we need to start pushing that a little bit because we don't have 100 kids there anymore. And you're spending over 3.6 million for a limited number of kids. And so I know 2 counties are trying to figure that out.
I've had conversations with Lewis County about that, bringing their kids here. They didn't seem interested in that, but you are right, Mr. Chair. There's actually quite a few counties throughout the state that are looking at consolidating their youth facilities. It's been considered.
I will say, one of the downsides of that is you're going to get increases from your public defender's office for travel to get to see their clients. There's going to be, it's going to fall out in different areas. I'm not suggesting that it would add up to $3 million in long-term or short-term, but there's going to be other concerns associated with that. A lot of folks that aren't able to visit any kids in custody because they can't afford to get wherever they're sent to, which the studies show is really not good. So we try to keep everybody as close to their home location as possible. So there are other things to consider, but I guess it sounds like if there's other counties looking into that, then we can start speaking with other counties.
thank you.
I want to thank everybody for your time today, and I want to give a special thank you to Kathy for all of her help with Ms. Paul, Mr. Delagrange, and Mr. Moya. So thank you.
Sad to see you go, Kathy. Very sad. Great job.
Thank you, guys. Right on time.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Okay, we can head into a agenda review and looks like you're first on the list anyway.
Looks like I'm the first on the list. Okay, good. I have a few handouts.
Thank you.
It looks big, but
It's not really.
it's not that scary.
Okay.
I gotta get thicker glasses.
Like transitional.
Or longer arms.
Need
Bigger
tele-
glasses or longer arms.
Yeah, tell us.
Of course, that's tough for you.
Yeah, funny guy. Need some telescopic contacts.
Okay, my agenda item is that we have a budget amendment. This is our fourth quarter budget amendment coming up and for tomorrow. And couple things on our budget amendment. One is that We're establishing a new fund, and that's the Sheriff Equipment and Technology Fund. We've had a couple of workshops on that. We had a workshop for the budget related to it as well. So that won't be a surprise. And then the rest of it is actual budget amendments, looking at revenues as well as expenses, and for those things that need to be adjusted before the end of the year. And so for general fund, good news. Our expenses that we're making adjustments on are less than the adjustments we're making to our revenue. So our fund balance will grow $346,000 in general fund for all of the items that we're recommending adjustments on. And so really, and the expenses, sheriff office had a lot of ins and outs, but overall ended up with a zero placement. They reduced areas and they increased other areas. Our HR department didn't utilize summer help, so they took a decrease in expenditures. Our treasurer's office, this is solely because we had budgeted some medical on direct labor at a different rate than was actuals. So if you have change or anything in personnel or their elections, it can change the expense. That was about an $8,000 increase. Sheriff extradition had some increases due to just various items. Expenses exceeded what they had expected at the beginning of the year, about $6,000. We had a large decrease in our, I'm sorry, I'm going pretty fast, page 3, which is our district court. This is one that they also put in place for a budget for 2026. They decreased the judge pro tem budget significantly and the associated benefits that went with that. And they also decreased some software expenses, and then they had an increase in interpreter services of $15,000. So Office of Public Defense, this is last quarter, we made an adjustment for their association fees related to the condo. I made a mistake. They told me $800. It was $800 a unit. I thought it was $800 a month. So got that. So we're adjusting that up. And then WSU put through a correction that decrease expenses because it's a program that's not being done any longer. So they didn't have any need for the extra payroll, extra help. And non-departmental, small change for calculation of what needs to be transferred to the budget stabilization fund, 37,000 increase there. It's a formula based upon last year's final results for revenue. And then we're not doing a transfer to the shooting range. It's not needed this year for 75,000. And then we needed a little extra to support the prosecuting attorney's victim witness program. And then that's 45,000. And then PFD debt service, we didn't think that we're changing how we're recording it. I thought this year we were going to let everything be recorded at PFD's program fund level. And the auditor's office has told me, no, we need to go back to doing it the way we were doing it. We record the expenses on general fund, but we record revenue on general fund coming from PFD. And so we show everything on Cowlitz County, and then we also show it on PFD. So, and that's the majority of the expenses. And then, like I said, we also went through and looked at the revenues and increased revenues or decreased revenues appropriately based upon where they were at this point in time. Most of these were in the range of our rents. we have it on the revenue side as rents, but it's really the facility charges for all services related to facilities, personnel, custodial, electricity, everything. And then we have the PFD miscellaneous revenue, 116,000. Expense went up and so did revenue. The next couple of pages, which are pages 5, 6, 7, 8, and are predominantly from our Health and Human Services Department. And this is where they go through and they are looking at their new contracts, things like that. And they make their adjustments. So it's a lot of line items because of the fact that they have a lot of their people are split between different programs. And so that's what this is primarily. And you have a whole sheet that explains all of them. And so that's pages 5, 6, 7, 8, and continues on to page 9. And they're transitioning, as they've told you. They're going to eliminate one fund and consolidate everything into another fund. That will predominantly take place beginning of next year, but they're doing a lot of this work to get things ready for closing out that fund, which is 14101. So. Not any one line items, major changes, just a lot of individual line items reflect how they're reprogramming their budgets.
So I see that the fund number is the same for most of these, account number, a lot of them are identical. What's BARS, B-A-R-S, what is that?
That's the state system that helps classify revenues and expenses into the state lines for financial reporting purposes. And that's what it is. It helps determine the function of the expense, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Is the function okay, then moving on away from Health and Human Services, then we had some miscellaneous changes for the Treasurer's Office. They did some combo code changes. This is where they changed salaries between their general fund and the Treasurer's O&M, as well as Treasurer's investment revenue. No, it was no general fund. It was between Treasurer's O&M and Treasurer's investment, I believe. And that was $11,000. A fairly large budget adjustment has to do with this cumulative fund. This is a fund that existed many years, and they were splitting the lodging tax that was coming in 50-50 between tourism fund, and 50% was going to this cumulative reserve. This is something that dated back many years where they were trying to set aside enough funds to help cover the cost and the facility when we maintained, it was at Johnson Ridge. And we no longer have that facility, so there really wasn't a reason to continue to split the tourism revenue. So now in 2025, 100% of the tourism revenue goes to tourism. And so as a result, for many years of putting those funds aside, there was accumulation of about $900,000 in the cumulative reserve fund that we're dissolving that. There's no purpose for it any longer. And so that fund now needs to move over to tourism's fund balance. So that's the $915,333. So we dissolve the fund, we're showing the entry to show it leaving and going back to tourism. The good news is tourism will utilize part of those funds for a marketing study that they presented. I think Kimbo Cunt presented to you a while back. And so that's to help pay for that marketing study. So they have the funds available.
Because we had that set aside just for Johnson Ridge, now it's in this. This looks like there's a benefit to the cities because now this is available for them.
It's available
to
for
look
award
at. Yeah,
things
okay.
for the tourism advisory group to award. Yeah, so not only do they have the regular revenue that's coming in, but then they also have this large fund balance. Or to use it for a facility, it can be used on a facility as well. So if there's a facility that's needing a major,
Kathy, the ending fund balance, is that reflective of that transfer in?
yes. So now the tourism budget will have a fund balance of a little over $1.2 million, which is significant. So it's a good thing to have. So. On page 10, we have some budget line item reductions, but as well as increases. The sheriff's, this is a crime reduction team, task force or team. And so they had some additional expenses for a new sergeant, required training, and an evidence case. And boat safety, just a small change there on medical insurance. The low income housing expense is part of our health and human services. So they've included a narrative on that. They just adjusted some of their salary time that's being charged to this particular fund. And just some increase in overtime on law and justice that we needed to account for, but we had more than enough in medical insurance to help cover that. Budget stabilization, this is where we're putting 1% of revenue and we wait till the audit is finished so we know what that number is. And so we've moved $597,000 over to the budget stabilization fund. And the next line shows you on the ending fund balance that what that increase, our budget stabilization fund will be at almost $3.5 million. And then the next one was first off, truing up the cumulative reserve before I made that final transfer of the funds. I had to true up the fund balance. Then that leads me to page 11. And on page 11, we did some adjustments on our bond, particular bond fund. This is where we account for our debt. Previously, before PFD refinanced the bonds that they currently had outstanding, they were set to pay $487,000 for an annual bond payments. And now it's down to $116,000. So we made that adjustment. We should have made it probably when they refinanced, but I didn't catch it. And so we're catching it up in this quarter. And that goes for the revenue and the expense side both. And then we had in your water sewer fund, they had a project. They had a revenue coming in for $2.2 million. The project will occur in 2026, so it's a reimbursement program. So they're going to move that to 2026 budget. And then we are going to spend a little less in ARPA funds than we anticipated, but those will carry over into 2026 as well. And we adjusted the expense, revenue side and the expense side for that. And then on the Expo Center, we had some revenue adjustments, additional revenue. And they placed those in the repairs and maintenance expenditure account. So additional revenue, additional expenses. The Expo Center, they had just some corrections in the salary area, some decreases as well as increases. And due to some combo code changes that they did. On page 12, is there anything significant here? Silver Lake, when we did our BMRs, we noticed that they didn't budget any investment income. So now we're catching up and showing investment income, and that increases their fund balance. DEM is because of facility charges, they need to increase their expenditure line. Building and planning, a small increase to medical insurance, but we decreased direct labor. Shooting range, they didn't need the transfer, so we reduced that transfer in. And then the only other large one here is I went through and reviewed IT's fund balances. So on the IT operating side, their fund balance was understated when we did the budget. So it's about 569,000 increase. So we fixed beginning balance and we fixed ending balance for the same amount. And really, then the next on page 13, we did the same thing for IT reserve. Their fund balance was understated from the beginning budget, and so it's about 971,000 of an increase to the fund balance, both beginning and ending. And then the Sheriff Technology Fund, this is starting off with the new fund. We'll receive some transfers in with this budget amendment to establish the fund from different sources. One from general fund from their own department, 150,000. 411 is from IT, and then 371 from motor pool, for a total of 932,000 of revenue, and then they're recording 932,000 of fund balance, as well as some expenditures that they need to make this year. And as far as some of these others, their ins and outs, motor pool is reflective of what happened at Sheriff's Fund. And then on page 14, just some cleanup again, going through, looking at line items and increasing or decreasing expenses. So, and these were offset by fund balance for law enforcement and for the conference center expense. That's it.
Kathy, could you go back to IT? I was looking at others and thinking of other things. What did you say? The revenue was overstated?
So on IT, I went through and I looked at their fund balance. And when we originally put the budget together, fund balance is always an estimate. And so we estimated what they would have in fund balance for the budget. And we understated it because this kind of goes back to my analysis of looking at last year. They had about $600,000. So this kind of trues it up. $600,000 worth of expenses that didn't happen because of vacancies, things like that. And so for 2024, they had underspent their budget, and that increases their ending fund balance. And we're going to use that in the 2026 budget to help offset the billings that we're doing. Because we really don't want to carry that large of a fund balance in their operating. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so it's just truing it, going back and truing it up. And when I did that, I also trued up their reserve account as well.
Trying to remember, I think Travis, when we had him on, there was a specific number that he said he felt comfortable with having in there. You remember what that was?
Not exactly. We have a worksheet that depicts all the different infrastructure items that they possibly would need to replace in the next coming years. And based upon the calculations that we have, that's about $3 million just for infrastructure items alone. And that's it for the budget amendment, and I don't think I have any other agenda item. We were looking at the mediation contract, but I think we're not ready to bring that one yet.
Okay. So working through all those pages, it's an improvement to where we are. By
Yes.
346.
Yeah, on
or
the
something
general
like that.
fund, it's an improvement. Mhm. Yep,
Okay.
very positive.
Yeah.
Every little bit helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I have down here sheriff, what is the sheriff on for? Oh, that's just a Spillman record. Is Katrina on there? Oh, good.
Yep, I'm here. Good morning, commissioners. These expenses are already in our budget for 26 and 27. These are the final agreements with the 5 police agencies, Longview, Kalama, Kelso, Woodland, Castle Rock, and the county. And it's to pay for our software that we all share to use for our records for all police agencies. It comes out of our special revenue fund that's called Law Enforcement Records Reserve Fund. So the money comes directly in, the money goes directly back out to Spillman. It also pays for the consultant that if we have any issues with Spillman, he programs and works closely with Julie in our records department.
How do you come up with the number? Is it like tracked by use or?
So there's a cost allocation on the formula for this on the back page of it. I don't know if you guys have all the pages there, but it goes off of the number of Spillman users. So if
Okay.
Kalama is smaller, then they have only, let's see, Kalama has 8 Spillman users. So they pay 3.4% of the total cost, where Longview Police has 81 users. So they pay 34% of the cost. We have 82, so we pay 34% of the cost. So like 26 for the county, the cost is $59,000 for the whole year. But of that cost, 91% is general fund and 8.1% comes out of law and justice funding. And that's how it's historically been on those. And then in 27, the county's contribution is 62,000, with general fund paying 57 and law and justice paying 5,000. Do you have any questions?
I just like to make some notes when I'm reading down through these
Sure.
tomorrow. That helps. Thank you.
Yes, and then we have the consultant is part of that, Jeff Robbins, that does the programming with Julie Harris in records for anything we need programming wise. If we want a special report or this code needs to be changed, he is the one that helps her do all of that.
Katrina, I know you said that it's been paid out that way historically with the ratios as far as the law and justice compared to the general fund. Do the cities have the how do they pay it? Do they pay it out of their general fund or their law and justice? And can we increase what comes out of that law and justice, or is it just set as to what we can use for that?
So law and justice is our fund that Kathy manages, and then just general fund. So it has been for 14 years, this exact same way. That's how long I've been with the county. You, as the commissioners, I'm sure could change and have that whole amount come out of general fund or more come out of law and justice. However, I would talk with Kathy because I think there's some reduced funding issues in the law and justice funding. She can speak to that more than I can, but you guys have the authority to change how this $59,000 gets paid for us. For the cities, I imagine it comes right out of their general fund for them to pay their portion of it.
Thank you.
So the whole total cost is 169,000. It's not a lot for the entire year. So like City of Longview pays $59,000, where Kalama only pays $5,000 for the whole year. And that's why we have a special revenue fund, because the bills go directly, they come, we receive the money exactly, we don't make any extra on it, and then we pay the funds back out. So it's just a wash, comes in and goes out, but we don't want to mix other entities' money with other expenses. Do you have any other questions?
No, I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
Building and planning.
Morning, Commissioners. Tracy Jackson, Building and Planning. With me today, I have Sahara. Sorry. I'm gonna hand it over to her and let her talk about the closed record hearing.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Tracy. Sahara Cooey, Senior Planner, Building and Planning. We are seeking to set a public hearing for November 4th, 9:30 a.m. to consider preliminary rural subdivision plat approval recommendation for KT West subdivision. This is off of Payne Road in Castle Rock, Washington.
Are we expecting anybody that would come in on this?
No, we did not
You
receive.
didn't have any comments on it?
Just agency comments, and they were standard, general in
Okay.
nature.
Okay, we didn't have any neighbors.
Not
Come-
for the rural subdivision, so this was previously part of a 4-lot short subdivision. So they're seeking to do an additional lot, triggering the rural subdivision requirements. During the short subdivision process, there was one neighboring comment, but I believe we addressed all of her concerns, just explaining the process to her. So none for the rural subdivision.
Okay.
The applicant happens to be here in case you have questions of him.
I would maybe call them up just to give them a bad time, but
That
it
would
sounds,
be
yeah,
completely
Yeah.
legitimate. I would expect nothing less.
yeah. Okay,
That's it. Thank
yeah,
you.
thanks. Noxious weed, Jennifer. I think we already talked about this one. It's just on the agenda now, right?
Good morning, Jennifer with Noxious Weeds. We may have had a recent one come through because there's a modification to our 24 to 25 contract. So that was probably the one I was here a few weeks ago.
Okay,
So this is a new contract with the Department of Ecology for a WCC crew for a total of 3 working weeks next year. 2 of those weeks will be working in the monument, so that expense on our side will be billed off to our monument work through our grant. And then the 3rd week will be in the late summer, and we will be using the crew for knotweed work. Some of that may apply to our knotweed grant, but the weed board has also elected to bring in the WCC crew for efficiency on Clark Creek. So scheduling will be between either Clark Creek or the rest of our knotweed grant work. TBD at the end of next summer. But so this grant or this contract, it's not a grant. This contract I think is just under 17 grand for those 3 weeks of work. Any questions on that?
As far as the knotweed goes, are we or are we not making progress with them?
We are making progress.
Okay.
Takes a lot of repeat applications in the same areas because it has such a deep root system. Typically, after about 3 years, we see excellent results, provided that nothing is spreading from elsewhere. So sometimes what we're seeing is things that either were missed or have resurfaced after a couple year gap. And so we have to stay on top of those to prevent them from spreading further.
And are they typically in creek bottoms?
Typically, but it can grow away from the creek. Some of our infestations are, 100 feet away from the creek because the floodplain is so flat. Or maybe an animal moved it uphill when it got stuck and refragmented somewhere else. So sometimes we see it further away from the creek. If it was intentionally planted, or it could be anywhere in a landscape, really, it just does really well. It's a very aggressive plant, but where we primarily are doing our work is in the riparian areas.
Does it provide shade to the creek?
I don't know that I would define it in such a way. If you're referring to the effects
I
on
know where
fish
it's going.
habitat, it is terrible for fish habitat. It destroys fish habitat. Yes. So it's actually a benefit to remove this for fish, regardless of how it affects the temperature. It has other impacts to fish.
Nice try, Commissioner. I just have a curiosity question
Yeah.
for you, because I've been told that some places, and I think it came up because I mentioned, I was talking to somebody, I was traveling through Wyoming one time and I saw them unloading like 2 big trailers worth of sheep just up into like a hillside,
Yeah.
and I was told sometimes they use the animals because they'll eat some of that stuff. Is that true, or do we ever look at that? I'm thinking about the monument. Would you unload like a load of whatever that would eat some of that stuff for a summer, or?
Specifically for knotweed, I think that cows have been known to graze it, and if left there, they can graze it enough to really have an impact. However, there's often trouble with grazing in riparian areas, so it's usually not a method we use for this species. But goats and other animals have been used for grazing of other things. They're super effective on blackberry, maybe some other noxious weeds too, but
Interesting.
it's not something that we have been using. There are a lot of logistical things around that, so.
Well, I see a lot, I have a little place in Idaho in Clearwater County, and you get out in the back and farmers bring up their cows, and the whole summer they're out there,
Mhm.
just traveling through the actually is forest timber or wilderness or whatever it is. So I imagine some of that's that, plus it's free grazing for them, but.
Yeah, there's a lot of complexities when you think about bringing grazing animals into a new area, including what seeds they bring through their digestive system. And maybe they eat something that's clean and doesn't have any weed seed contamination. Maybe it doesn't.
Interesting.
So if you have a farmer who's really paying attention to what their animals are eating, it can be effective in some areas, yes.
Interesting. And drones, as that gets bigger and bigger, do you vision?
I would
or
love
maybe
that.
there are people are using that?
I would love to be able to do some drone treatments. We have some very difficult to reach areas. It would really improve the safety for our team in trying to access things on a steep hillside. The drone presentations that I've seen so far from other noxious weed programs, everybody's raving about it. It saves time, it saves money, and it's really targeted. So I would like to see that.
And make it that targeted, huh?
Yes.
Interesting.
The drones can also do some surveying, which is a really large part of treatment, is knowing where your target species are. And they can do surveying for large areas at, higher area. You train the video that you captured to say, this is my target, this is my target, this is my target. Once you have enough targets in there, it will use AI to identify additional targets. So it can be extremely effective. We haven't had the opportunity to do that yet. However, the Dyking District did recently a drone treatment over off of 32nd, and they're raving about that. So if you're interested, I could
Interesting.
see if we can get more information, but it has happened here in Longview, so it's really effective.
Well, thank you. I know that's down the rabbit hole, but it's just a couple of things that had.
The rabbit holes I'm in
Yeah.
more than I'd like to admit.
So if we had a herd of goats or sheep, we'd have to have a goat herder or
No, right,
Herd.
yeah.
a sheep dog.
Yeah, no.
I think I've seen recently one company, I think they're based out of Cowlitz County, that has goats available for weed control.
Well, I know the cattle over in Clearwater County, they have right of way. So when you see them out there,
Yeah.
you don't bother them because you're responsible for
Mm-hmm. All right.
them. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Gina?
Mhm.
Oh, did I pass over Gina?
Yeah.
I did, didn't I?
That's okay.
Sorry,
That's
Gina.
okay. That's okay. Gina James, Health and Human Services. We have on the agenda tomorrow a proclamation just to recognize this year, October marked the 80th anniversary for National Disability Employment Awareness Month. There's been a lot of work in our community with our businesses, individuals, families, community members around employment. So we were just looking for a way to raise some additional awareness and further recognize that work in the community and the importance of employment for everybody. So,
So you're gonna have that for us to read?
yes. And I'm happy to read it too, if you'd like me to read it.
Well, we may do that, yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Public Works.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sean Rowley, Public Works. I have a really short one for you today. It's item number 2 on the agenda. It's a bid award to Jail Stordahl and Sons for the purchase of rock delivery. Total amount is $91,286. This was a bid we put out. It's kind of our first foray into the delivered products area for the road department. We had 3 bidders submit. The lowest was withdrawn for an error. So the next lowest bidder was Stordahl and Sons at that $91,000.
And this is for all our shops, right?
It's gonna be for 3 of our shops.
3 of our shops,
Yep.
okay.
Talleyway, Ocean Beach Highway, and the Norris Pit for 1,000 ton of 5/8 minus, and then Longview's getting an additional 500 ton of 1 1/4 minus.
Was it an error in math?
They had forgotten to put the shipping charge on it. So it was reflective of the material price only. That's all we have for it. It's a light one for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bryn, you've been patient.
Good morning, Marin Fox, Director of Corrections. Tomorrow on the consent agenda, you have a contract amendment with the Washington State Healthcare Authority. This is an extension of a grant. We've been under contract with them for, I think, maybe 4 years. It's worded a little strange when you look at it. It's a 1-year amount of $437,000. This will offset some of the cost of the medical contract. So this comes as a reimbursement from the state for our MOUD program, which is
So
like
this is
more commonly
actually
known as
a-
MAT.
This is actually a credit to us.
Yep. Yep. It'll be retro to July 1 of 25 and through June 30 of 26. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, I do have a question, Marin. that just popped in my head. Is this the program where we can bill Medicaid now for some of the services?
No,
Okay,
this is separate. It will be affected by that. So when we transition to the Medicaid transformation project, that will be, I believe this amount will be coming from that bucket. So I think it will shift.
and how close are we to that transfer?
We're looking at mid 26.
Thank you.
Do we have any HR today? No HR today? Okay. All right.
Good morning, I'm back. So the state requires us to produce an unexpected fatality report whenever we have an in-custody death. We had the in-custody death of Michael Coates in June 24th. We have 120 days to get the report done. Often it takes longer than that because we have to wait for autopsy, and that typically takes longer. So we got the autopsy report back. I'd like a 60-day extension per the RCW. The board can authorize an extension. This will allow us to do this report with Medico, our new medical company, because per the RCW, you should have it done by uninvolved parties. So I thought with the timing of switching the company, it would made sense just to put a pin in it until we have them on board.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Thank you for the day. We will adjourn. We out chasing that.